Well, it's that time. Welcome back to another What's on My Deck. It's technically July, but we're doing June. We're also including some of May. I know I did not pump one out for May or June. That was for good reason. I literally went on about a 30-day guiding bender out on Lake Mille Lacs and then had a pretty big tournament. I got to fish a classic bass event out there, which is easily one of the biggest tournament circuits here in Minnesota, Wisconsin area. But this one was an open and it just so happened to be at Lake Mille Lacs. So I'm just being honest with you. I didn't want to lie to nobody. I wanted to show you what I was really throwing. So I just kind of waited until we're done. And now we're on our way to St. Clair. Just packing everything up, about to put my rods away so we can hit the road tomorrow. Bassmaster Open at Lake St. Clair. I'm excited about it. Let's get through these 9 setups. We're talking smallmouth fishing, so let's get into it. Very first one, drop shot. I wish I had these in more of a chronological order of how I was using them from May to the end of June, but I'll try to fill you in as we go. A drop shot. You can't go smallmouth fishing without a drop shot. To be truly honest with you, I don't throw it a whole heck of a lot. Here, at least not in Minnesota, I don't throw a drop shot a whole heck of a lot in the pre-spawn. I tend to like baits like a tube, a Ned rig, a jig, something like that. Something that I can throw to the bottom, and they seem to like that. Once we get into the spawn and then post-spawn and beyond, then I start to really like that weightless piece of plastic, even though you got to wait here. So I'm using a Loomis NRX Plus 822S drop shot rod. This is my bread and butter. It's 610 meg medium. A flagship Loomis rod. They've had this one in the lineup in numerous different series. This one in the NRX Plus. I'm using the Shimano Exsence 4000 10-pound PowerPro SSV2 to an 8-pound Shimano Mastiff Flourocarbon leader. Here I just got a real little tiny owner hook. I'm using a Megabass. I think they say Hazedong, or I don't even know how they pronounce it. Just a little guy on the drop shot. Little paddle tail, something to throw around. Now I have a 3/8 ounce Woo Tungsten on here. However, earlier in the year, say, I was probably throwing 3/8 if they were on beds with a lot shorter leader. Once they went post-spawn, I probably had right away was throwing like a 1/4 ounce while they were up there. Once the tournament came around, we were mostly post-spawn, some fish still out deeper on beds and stuff, and then I went to the 3/8 just so I could kind of hit anywhere between that 8 to 15, 16 foot range. So that's number one. Number two, feel like a broken record with a couple of these because when you go smallmouth fishing, how can you not have a Ned rig? Outkast tackle, perfect Ned head. This is an 1/8 ounce 1/0 hook. I'm throwing a simple Z-Man TRD. This one happens to be in green pumpkin. You know, I'm gonna either throw this or a tube basically. I'm gonna have both of them on there, the drop shot when it comes to fishing the bottom, the Ned rig or the tube. The Ned rig, kind of more controlled, falls straighter, pull it, stands up, pull it, stands up. Tube, you know, throw it out there, it's gonna fall like this, and then as I pull it, it's got more of an erratic action. You know, one day they're on one better than the other. If you followed this at all, you know how much I absolutely love this rod. This is the Loomis NRX Plus 872S JWR rod. In my opinion, still might be one of the most versatile spinning rods out there. It is 7 foot 3 inches, extra fast with a medium action. Again, using a Shimano Exsence 4000 10-pound PowerPro SSV2 and 8-pound Shimano Mastiff Flourocarbon. Again, Josh Douglas perfect net head, Outkast, and the TRD. Different baits I'll throw. I throw a Sakoshi bug a lot. I've been playing with a lot as long as they have that Elastec in it. That's what gives it that kind of deal to get it where it falls and it pops back up in the fish's face and it just gets bit. What do we got next? Let's stick with pre-spawn. So now maybe about now I get back on it. Can't say I threw it a heck of a lot in the tournament, but here I got like a 3/4 ounce wobblehead, bifflehead, hardhead, whatever you want to call it, with you got a 4/0 owner, extra wide gap jungle hook, and a Menace, a straight king Menace on the bottom of it. I switch this bait out quite often. Different baits that I'm throwing. Basically, I'm just reeling this thing fast, trying to spring it in one's face, especially when I get a school of bass sitting somewhere and maybe they're using their eyes they don't really want to eat. So this is a reaction bait for me out here on places like Lake Mille Lacs. I'm throwing on a brand new Loomis GLX 874C CRR rod. That stands for Carolina Rig Rod. You know I'm a big fan of the CRR series and the NRX Plus. The 873, I think it's the best dragging rods, fluorocarbon dragging rods you can get yourself into. The old GLX with the recoil guides, a couple GLXs ago, had the 874. Honestly, I've kept a couple of them in my closet and been using them still. until now. They've relaunched it here with the brand new GLX that just came out. Lots of stuff to talk about on here. If you follow my social media at all, you know how much I've been talking about the new GLX series. This is 7.3 fast, heavy action. So, you know, this one's got a little bit more give. I throw heavier stuff with it, where that NRX Plus 873 is a 3-power, not a 4-power, so it's just a little bit lighter. Use it a lot, but sometimes when it comes to throwing this bigger, heavier stuff, I prefer the 874. This is also a better classic Carolina rig rod straight up, because I throw a 3/4 ounce, 1 ounce weight, half ounce at the lightest. So this is a good setup for that. I'm using a Shimano Bantam. This is a HG. If it was a straight Carolina rig rod, I'd be using an 8-speed. In this case, I'm using a 7-speed because I am kind of reeling it like a crankbait. You know, I don't want to get too fast in front of it, and they're just kind of slacklining it when they hit it. I'm throwing this thing on straight 16-pound Shimano Mastiff Flourocarbon. So just a good opportunity pre-spawn, kind of put it away during the spawn, post-spawn. It'll come back out here as the summer starts to roll big time. Again, weightless pieces of plastic. As the fish start to go post-spawn, some are still lingering shallow, some are moving back out. A weightless piece of plastic always gets the job done. I'm throwing a owner Wacky hook on here. This is just a little 3-inch Yamamoto Senko. Small one. Sometimes I'll do a 4-inch, sometimes a 5-inch, just totally depends on what I'm doing. 3-inch Senko, 3-inch Senko fat, 4-inch Senko, 5-inch Senko. I like the Daiwa Nico little Yamamoto thing that they got. That was always a good bait. That's always a good bait for me. Again, just Wacky. I'm throwing this on 10-pound PowerPro SSV2 to a 10-pound Shimano Mastiff Flourocarbon leader, and I'm throwing just a nasty little Wacky rig rod, the Loomis NRX Plus 842S SJR. That's 7-foot medium action. Again, using the Shimano Exsence 4000. Anytime I'm throwing something out there, I'm going to set the hook and have to catch up the line, I'm going to go with the 4000. So dragging, dead sticking, drop shots, neds, tubes, all that. Get into swimming baits, and we'll talk about that more. That's when I'm going to drop back down into like a 2500 or 3000 size. Something kind of new for me. If you followed this for the last few years, I'm always on the 4000s. I'll get into that more, but in this case, again, 4000, and I think I covered everything. Wacky rig, definitely will get the play. If the fish are a little deeper, maybe I put a Nako weight in there and, you know, put a little weight in there to let it fall a little bit. Just a good overall rod for that kind of stuff. As soon as they let us on the lake out here, which is Mother's Day weekend, that's when it opens up. Bass, you can fish for bass out here. I've had a jerk bait in my hand. Some days I had 3 or 4 different jerk baits on my deck of my boat. This time of year now we're getting back to kind of just one, and it's one I'm using a lot for forward sonar. Earlier in the year, pre-spawn, you know, I'm really moving water with a bait, throwing anything from the Shimano World Diver, which was an exceptional one for me when the fish were just a little deeper and we had a little higher water. Of course, I'll throw some of the Megabass baits, and then this World Minnow. If you see here on my front hook, I weighted down my hooks and put a little tungsten ball at the very end of it. I'm saying this because I am throwing this a lot for targets that I see on my forward sonar, and I want it to sink. I don't want to have to jerk the bait down to their depth. I want it to sink to where their depth is and keep moving so that I can give it a lot of play without the bait coming back up or even sitting. I want to really get their attention on it. The Shimano World Minnow, it just gets bit. It's a great bait. Hooks are awesome. New rod, and I'm loving this rod. I prototyped this rod heavy before it just launched. This is the new Loomis GLX 822C JBR, an all new rod in the series. This is 6'10", moderate fast, medium action with a shortened handle. So all day long, if I got my bibs on or I got a hoodie on, I'm not catching it in my pockets. Awesome rod. And then the new Shimano Metanium 70 HG, I'm throwing straight 10-pound Shimano Mastiff Flourocarbon. With this little Metanium DC, I can cast these jerk baits. It's just an absolute mile. You're not going to outcast me, especially with the jet boost that comes in the Shimano World Minnow. That's why I'm throwing it. Throws it a super long way, and with that little bit of DC breakage in there, if I get heavy winds in my face and I still need to make that cast, I can do it. Again, this 822 DSR, or I'm sorry, the 822, I'm used to saying DSR for drop shot, JBR jerkbait rod, one of my favorites, and you're gonna see it again. Literally early in the year, had 3 jerkbaits on, all 3 of those rods ready to go. Since we just talked about that rod, let's keep this one in my hand, and this was an extra treat for me, looking for a good top water rod, and I found it. Again, I'm talking about this Loomis GLX 822C jerkbait rod. For the most part, started the season throwing the jerk bait, the fish went to spawn, and I finished the spawn out with the top water bait. In this case, this is the Shimano World Pop 69F. You can see again, it's got that flash boost technology, casts a super long way. The same rod, it's perfect. The 822 610 medium short handle, again for a popper or if I'm walking the dog, using like a spook style bait or any one of those, evergreen SB, whatever it's going to be. This is the rod to do it. Again, short handle, nice midsection, quick tip. Absolutely awesome. Top water and jerkbait rod. I honestly don't think it gets much better, and I was super pumped on that. I got to prototype it for a long time, had to keep it quiet for a long time, and I'm using that particular rod a whole bunch now. You're gonna see it a lot more down the line. The Dirty Hair Jig. This is the Outkast Tackle Fighter Fly. You can see I'm using brown. Brown was just better as the bugs started hatching. We got a mayfly hatch going on. End of June, post-spawn. Those fish don't want to fight crawdads. You know, they're beat up. They spent 2 weeks on the bed doing whatever it was they were doing. They're hungry. They don't want to fight a bunch of crawdads. They just want to look up, and God made it so that those bugs are hatching right now. Real super easy meal for them. And again, I'm always been throwing the Outkast Tackle Fighter Fly. A lot of times throwing black. Don't sleep on green and brown. I'm telling you that right now. Wine's also a good color. Different times of year, different situation. Throw my old faithful. This is the Loomis NRX Plus 901 SJR rod. That is 7 foot 6 inches, medium light. It's a noodle, but it casts this thing an absolute mile, or as far as you're gonna be able to cast a little tiny 3/32 jig, but at the same time, it not only allows me to throw this thing a long ways, but it also allows me to keep them fish pinned. The rod just loads up. It's got like a 99% success rate landing them. I'm using a Shimano Exsence 4000, straight 10-pound PowerPro, regular PowerPro. I think it casts a little further when it comes to super duper light stuff. I like the green because I'm using a little bit shorter 8-pound Shimano Mastiff Flourocarbon leader. Don't want it to tangle up. I don't want the knot to slow it down, so I'm keeping the knot, you know, just outside. It's right up here actually somewhere. Awesome setup. Hair jig, I'm gonna be throwing this until the water starts to get real dirty out there and the fish just can't see it no more, and you'll know, you'll reel it in, and every time you reel it in, it'll have slime on it. Not last, but second to last. We talked about it earlier, the tube. Never met a smallmouth won't eat my tube. Been throwing kind of a sandy colored one. Green pumpkin works. I'm switching it up. Again, I'm using that forward sonar a bunch. You can see all the screen that I got behind me. I'm letting the fish tell me what they want. I feel like I'm getting better and better and better at that as I get out there. Again, throwing the tube, I'm throwing it, it's a Get Bit tube by Get Bit Baits out of Wisconsin. The smaller tube, I'm using their smaller jig head. This is a 3/8. Earlier in the year, I was probably starting out with like an 1/8, then went to a 1/4. Now we're to a 3/8. The fish are starting to go a little deeper, that little bit more of a fall. Maybe I'm looking for a reaction bite. Again, throwing it on a Loomis NRX Plus 872S jig worm rod. That's the 7.3 medium. You call it maybe a mag medium. A lot of backbone, fast tip. Again, it's the bomb. Shimano Exsence 4000, 10-pound PowerPro SSV2 to a 10-pound Shimano Mastiff Flourocarbon leader. On the tube, sometimes I'll go 8, but if I'm doing a lot of dragging with the zebra mussels and dragging it around, I like that 10, especially heading to St. Clair, something I can snap out of the weeds that they're gonna have there. This will be the setup. Last but not least, and this is a beauty setup that we just came out with at Loomis. I've been playing with 2 of them, so I only do 9 rods on these, so you're just gonna take my word for it. I'm sure you'll see the other one come up. This right here is everyone pinging a minnow, moping, strolling, mid-strolling, Damiki, whatever it is you wanna call this. They all kind of have a little bit different variances, but at the same time, it is a forward sonar. It's a great way. I've always said fish eat fish, so if you can throw them a minnow, why wouldn't you? Been playing with a lot of different sizes. Again, in this case, I'm throwing a 3/8 ounce Outkast Tackle Goldeneye jig head, and I was privy enough to get somebody hook me up with a lot of the new mooch minnows coming from the Rapala line, the Crush City line. It's a bad bait. It's awesome. It'll catch them, no doubt. It's got that same, you know, Elastec-y type stuff to it. But in this case, I thought I was grabbing one of those. I was actually running real low, and I grabbed this, and it's their little fluke style bait. I don't know what you call it. It's the same stuff from Crush City. It was just a little bit bigger profile, and honestly, I didn't notice I wasn't throwing a mooch minnow right away. So I'm gonna go ahead and say that this one will get bit too. I was honestly just trying to keep those mooch minnows for St. Clair and stuff as we went. But the rod, absolute beauty. GLX 891S jig worm rod. That's 7 foot 5 inches, medium light with a fast action. It is awesome for swimming stuff like that. I was also using this for a hair jig just for fun. I liked it, but that 901, I think I'd give the nod. It's just a little bit softer. This one's got a little bit more backbone to it. I'm throwing it on a Shimano Twin Power 2500. Now let's talk about that. I'm always 4,000. Not anymore. And I played with it. I talked about it on What's on My Deck, I think last year when I first started messing with it. I find that a 4,000 is best. Your bait lands on the bottom like this, it falls, you're dragging it, fish picks it up. You're like, I think he's got it. You set the hook and you can pick up that line real quick. 4,000 is the only way to go. You're gonna be able to cast it further, more accuracy, bigger drag, faster gearish, bigger line pickup, everything's good there. But when it came to swimming something over their head, even like a hair jig, I think I'm going to start throwing a 2500. It slows down how many inches I bring in per line crank. I think it's 31 on the 2500 Twin Power. I think it's 40 on the Exsence 4000, and they vary in between there. So this was one of their more high-end but slower reels, which is just more forgiving. When I throw it out there, I'm looking at my forward sonar, I'm trying to find the fish, and all of a sudden I see him, and I go, oh, he's coming, and I reel one time, and it just moves the bait too quick. At the same time, if I'm sitting there and I'm trying to buy time in the strike zone, I can do that with the 2500. So a lot more coming from me on that aspect. I think it's a lot more like bait casters. You want that 6-speed, 5-speed, 6-speed for cranking, maybe a 7-speed for like a real deep crankbait, spinnerbait, chatterbait, 8-speed when you're flipping and dragging stuff so you catch up quicker. 10-pound PowerPro SSV2 to a 10-pound Shimano Mastiff Flourocarbon leader. That's my setup. What's on my deck? Not too bad. We got through it. We'll have another one right after St. Clair when I get back for July, a whole new can of worms. We got a box full of baits, all rigged up and ready to go. Going to be a fun tournament. You know I'm in it for the Opens this year to win it. We got a lot going on. Got a new camera guy coming with me, so expect tons of content, high-end content, and of course our nuts and bolts like this, What's on My Deck. Subscribe to my channel, Josh Douglas Fishing, and tight lines. I'll see you next month.